August 16, 1958, 3:47 in the afternoon at Memphis Funeral Home, Tennessee. Gladys Love Presley rested in an open casket, surrounded by elaborate floral arrangements that Elvis had purchased for $15,000 because he believed nothing but the finest was appropriate for his mother. The viewing had continued for 6 consecutive hours. More than 3,000 people had filed through to pay their final respects to the woman who had raised the king of rock and roll. Elvis remained in the front row, visibly devastated. He hadn't slept for 4 days straight, hadn't eaten anything substantial, and could barely maintain his physical balance. His mother had succumbed to acute hepatitis at the age of 46. Elvis blamed himself relentlessly for being away in military service, for not being present, for failing to save her life somehow. The Memphis Mafia surrounded him protectively. Red West, Sonny West, and Lamar Fike formed a human barrier because Elvis kept collapsing forward onto the casket, crying out desperately, "Mama, wake up, please wake up." They were forced to physically restrain him repeatedly. However, toward the rear of the funeral home, near the guest book, 3 men in tailored suits stood together: Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and Dean Martin. They had traveled from Las Vegas that morning, not because they were personally close to Gladys, but because Elvis was America's biggest star, and respecting power was the entertainment industry's unwritten rule. But Dean Martin wasn't displaying respect. He was intoxicated. He had been consuming alcohol continuously since the aircraft had landed, and he had been making jokes throughout the service. Sammy Davis Jr. nudged him forcefully. "Dean, be quiet. This isn't the place." But Dean disregarded the warning. He leaned toward Frank Sinatra and whispered something that caused Frank's complexion to turn pale. Then Dean laughed, not boisterously, but loud enough to be noticed. In the front row, Elvis Presley heard it. He rotated slowly, his gaze meeting Dean Martin's directly. Their eyes connected for precisely 3 seconds. Dean's smile disappeared as he perceived something in Elvis's expression that filled him with fear. Not ordinary anger or rage, but something far more chilling, pure calculation. Then Elvis turned back toward his mother's casket. He said nothing, made no scene, simply returned his attention to the remains. In that moment, Dean Martin had no way of knowing that in those 3 brief seconds, he had forfeited a $20 million empire. To comprehend the events that would follow, 3 fundamental facts require understanding. First, the significance of Gladys Presley in Elvis's world. Second, Dean Martin's status and position in 1958. Third, what Elvis Presley was genuinely prepared to do when someone violated the one boundary that could never be crossed. Gladys Love Smith was born in 1912 in Pontotoc County, Mississippi. She married Vernon Presley when she was 21 years of age. They inhabited a state of abject poverty, residing in a 2-room shotgun house in Tupelo, where deterioration was so severe that gaps existed between the floorboards, allowing daylight to penetrate. On January 8, 1935, Gladys gave birth to twin sons. The first infant, Jesse Guerin, was stillborn. The second child, Elvis Aaron, survived his first moments of life. From that instance forward, Gladys channeled every particle of her affection, protective instinct, and aspirations into surviving child. She shared a sleeping arrangement with Elvis until his teenage years. She accompanied him to school daily on foot. She repeatedly assured him that he was special, that divine providence had preserved him for a specific purpose, that his future held significance and distinction. When Vernon was imprisoned for check fraud in 1938, Gladys raised Elvis independently. Their circumstances were so financially dire that their meals consisted primarily of cornbread and legumes. Gladys regularly denied herself adequate nutrition so that Elvis could consume more. She performed work as a seamstress and nursing aide, accepting whatever employment opportunities became available. Every single day, she communicated the same message to Elvis: "You're my whole world, baby. You're all I got." When Elvis began earning substantial income beginning in 1956, genuine wealth, millions of dollars, his first significant expenditure was acquiring a residence for Gladys. Graceland, purchased for $100,000. He presented her with the deed and declared, "Mama, you'll never be poor again." However, Graceland produced the opposite effect. Gladys found a mansion deeply unsatisfying. She resented the constant media attention, despised the newspaper reporters, and was unhappy that Elvis was frequently absent. She initiated drinking habits and began consuming pharmaceutical diet aids that were essentially amphetamine compounds. Her physical well-being deteriorated substantially. On August 14, 1958, she expired in Methodist Hospital while Elvis held her hand, sobbing with complete emotional collapse. So when Dean Martin ridiculed her at her funeral service, he wasn't merely showing disrespect toward Elvis's mother. He was mocking the singular individual whom Elvis had ever genuinely loved with complete devotion, and Elvis maintained that memory permanently. Dean Martin in 1958 occupied an untouchable position in American entertainment. He had recently terminated his professional partnership with Jerry Lewis, America's most prominent comedy duo, and launched a successful solo career. He possessed a recording contract with Capitol Records valued at $1 million. He had secured a motion picture agreement with Paramount Pictures worth $5 million. He earned the highest performer salary in Las Vegas, collecting $50,000 weekly at the Sand Hotel establishment. His television specials attracted 40 million viewers. His album releases achieved multi-million unit sales. Dean Martin's estimated net worth reached $20 million, and he possessed complete awareness of the status. He conducted himself as though he controlled the entertainment industry, consumed alcohol openly during performances, engaged in flirtation with virtually every female in proximity, and manufactured jokes about anyone and everyone because nobody possessed sufficient influence to challenge him, except he had just delivered humor at the wrong funeral, and the wrong individual had detected it. If you're questioning precisely what Dean articulated that day, continue reading because what transpires subsequently represents the most systematic, meticulous demolition of a career in entertainment industry history. Everything commences with a telephone call that Elvis initiates 3 days following the funeral service. August 19, 1958. Elvis has returned to Graceland. He hasn't departed his bedroom since attending the funeral service. The Memphis Mafia expresses profound concern that he might harm himself. However, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Elvis descends a staircase. He has showered, groomed his facial hair, and changed into fresh clothing. His eyes display redness but reveal intense concentration. "I need to make some private telephone calls," he communicates to Red West. "I don't want anyone monitoring these conversations." Red acknowledges and clears the room. Elvis takes hold of the telephone receiver. His initial call is directed toward Colonel Tom Parker. "Colonel, I require something from you, and I need you to refrain from questioning my request." Parker, perpetually vigilant for advantageous circumstances, responds, "What do you require, son?" "I require a comprehensive list containing every performance location where Dean Martin maintains bookings for the subsequent 24 months. Every casino establishment, every television network, every record label executive he collaborates with. I need telephone numbers. I need contractual documents. I need everything available." Parker hesitates momentarily. "Elvis, what intentions do you harbor?" "I intend to guarantee that Dean Martin never obtains employment again. Can you compile this list for me or not?" Parker recognizes that arguing with Elvis when his voice adopts this particular tone represents a tactical mistake. "I will have this information prepared by tomorrow." Elvis's second telephone conversation is with Frank Sinatra. "Frank, this is Elvis." Sinatra sounds astonished. "Elvis, I express my deepest condolences regarding your mother. She demonstrated genuine kindness. If anything within my capacity could provide assistance, I stand prepared." Elvis interrupts the pleasantries. "I need you to communicate exactly what Dean articulated at the funeral. Verbatim." Extended silence follows. "Elvis, I question whether—" "Frank, you occupied a position directly beside him. I witnessed your reaction. I require information regarding what he communicated." Another prolonged pause ensues. Subsequently, Frank Sinatra, who has navigated the organized crime-connected entertainment sector for 2 decades and comprehends when capitulate, speaks in measured tones. He communicated that your mother presented superior appearance in her deceased condition than she demonstrated during her living years. Subsequently, he articulated, "Perhaps now you would require growing into maturity and terminating your behavioral pattern of maternal dependency." Elvis maintains silence for 10 seconds. When he ultimately speaks, his vocal delivery has become entirely composed. "Thank you for providing truthful information, Frank. I won't neglect remembering this." Elvis, Dean was intoxicated. He harbored no genuine intention. "I comprehend precisely what he intended, and I'm going to guarantee he experiences regret concerning this matter perpetually." Elvis terminates the call. His tertiary contact is Steve Scholes at RCA Records. "Steve, this is Elvis. I need to discuss something regarding my contractual arrangement." "Anything, Elvis." "Suppose I desired renegotiating my agreement, perhaps prolonging the commitment for 10 supplementary years, committing to expanded album production and performance schedules. What valuation would that represent for RCA?" Steve experiences momentary shock. "Elvis, such an arrangement would represent everything. We would provide you whatever terms you request. 5 million, 10 million, whatever figures maintain your affiliation with RCA." "Excellent. Here's what I necessitate. I want inclusion in my contractual document specifying that RCA will refrain from distributing any Dean Martin recordings. Not presently, not ever. Additionally, I require you to notify Capitol Records that maintaining Dean Martin while I remain affiliated with RCA constitutes an incompatible business arrangement." Steve experiences paralysis, processing Elvis's statement. "Elvis, that constitutes an outright declaration of antagonism. Dean maintains status as one of Capitol's most significant performers. I'm cognizant of this reality. Do we have mutual agreement, or shall I transfer my subsequent 10 albums to Columbia Records?" "We have mutual agreement." Elvis terminates the connection. "That comprised the initial day. This situation only represents the commencement. Within 48 hours, Colonel Parker provides documentation listing every performance venue where Dean Martin maintained scheduled performances across the subsequent 24-month duration. 73 bookings collectively valued at $12 million. Elvis initiates his assault at the highest level, the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, Dean's operational headquarters, where he generates $50,000 weekly under contract, extending through 1962. Elvis initiates communication with Jack and Tratter, the entertainment director at the Sands, a previous nightclub security professional possessing established connections with Meyer Lansky and the Jewish organized crime organization controlling Las Vegas gambling operations. "Jack, Elvis Presley is communicating." "Elvis, how might I provide assistance?" "I'm interested in performing at the Sands Hotel for a 4-week residency during summer 1959. I'll execute this for $40,000 weekly." Jack experiences near suffocation from shock. Elvis Presley maintains no Las Vegas performance history. He operates as a motion picture performer and recording artist. Vegas exists beneath his professional status. "Elvis, do you genuinely mean this?" "Absolutely serious, with a single prerequisite." "Specify it." "Terminate Dean Martin's contractual arrangement. Immediately." Silence. "Elvis, Dean generates our highest attendance. We cannot simply—" "Jack, I'll clarify this plainly. You can retain me at $40,000 weekly, and I'll completely sell out every single performance, while introducing a younger demographic spending substantially greater resources than Dean's aging audience of intoxicated patrons. Alternatively, you can sustain Dean's employment, and I'll perform at the Riviera while communicating to every journalist throughout America that the Sands selected an aging, substance-dependent performer over the king of rock and roll. Your decision." Jack and Tratter recognizes sound business logic when articulated plainly. "I'll initiate contact with Dean's representatives. You possess 48 hours. 2 calendar days later, Dean Martin receives communication from his professional representative. Dean, the Sands is terminating your contractual agreement." "What?" "That's impossible. I maintain written documentation extending through 1962. They're disbursing the termination penalty, but they're declining renewal, and they're providing no explanation." Dean experiences intense anger, though he maintains confidence. He's Dean Martin. He'll simply relocate elsewhere. except every alternative venue receives equivalent communication. The Riviera, the Tropicana, the Flamingo, the Desert Inn, sequentially, each gaming establishment conveys to Dean Martin that operation requirements dictate moving toward different entertainment selections. By September 1958, 30 days subsequent to Gladys's funeral service, Dean Martin has sacrificed $8 million in Las Vegas performance agreements, and he remains entirely ignorant of the causation. However, the situation deteriorates substantially, considerably worse, because Elvis hasn't finished his systematic attack. Elvis's subsequent concentration targets Dean's motion picture professional achievements. Dean maintains contractual obligations with Paramount Pictures for producing 3 cinematic productions at $1.5 million each. The primary production, titled Career, commences filming in October 1958. Elvis initiates contact with Hal Wallace, the legendary movie producer responsible for directing over 400 films. Coincidentally, the identical producer collaborated with Elvis on King Creole. Hal, I'm presenting a business proposal. I'm prepared to listen. I'll execute a 10-picture contractual arrangement with you, exclusively, 1 motion picture annually across a subsequent decade, provided you eliminate Dean Martin from your professional roster. Hal Wallace conducts mental calculations. 10 Elvis movies at commercial box office revenues compared to 3 Dean Martin movies. The mathematical analysis presents no ambiguity. Completed, Dean obtains supplementary communication from his professional representative. Paramount has terminated your affiliation. What? Precisely why? They're declining to provide explanation. However, they're disbursing your contractual compensation and progressing forward. Dean experiences escalating panic. He initiates contact with Frank Sinatra. Frank, what's happening? Vegas gaming establishments won't schedule me. Paramount terminated me. Is someone conducting organized professional exclusion? Frank comprehends precisely what's happening. However, he simultaneously comprehends that revealing truthful information to Dean would position him directly within the confrontation between Dean and Elvis. And Frank Sinatra maintains no intention of opposing Elvis Presley. Dean, I possess no information. Potentially, you should consider a temporary respite. Permit circumstances to settle. Settle from what? I haven't perpetrated anything. Frank continues his silence. Throughout that wordless pause, Dean experiences sudden recognition. This concerns a funeral service, doesn't it? Frank declines to respond. Dean's vocal intensity elevates. Are you communicating seriously? Elvis is methodically ruining my professional career because of something I articulated while consuming alcohol that occurred 30 days previously. Dean, you expressed ridicule directed at his deceased mother during her funeral service. What outcome did you anticipate would happen? I believed he would physically strike me, vocally assault me, or overcome the situation like a psychologically balanced individual. I never imagined he would systematically obliterate my entire professional existence. Frank's reaction carries an icy quality. Subsequently, you demonstrate complete misunderstanding regarding Elvis Presley's character. This situation represents the point where the majority of individuals would discontinue their actions. However, Elvis Presley differs fundamentally from ordinary individuals. Continue reading if you're interested in discovering the complete extent of this revenge operation, because we've merely arrived at the midway point. By November 1958, Dean Martin has sacrificed $8 million in Las Vegas performance contracts for $0.5 million in movie professional agreements and is recording contract with Capitol Records. Because Elvis maintained his commitment, and RCA communicated with Capitol Records that sustaining access to Elvis's music compilation releases necessitated terminating Dean's professional affiliation. Dean's legal representative conducts a meeting and demonstrates the mathematical losses. Dean, within a 3-month duration, you've sacrificed $15 million in contractual professional obligations. Your professional existence demonstrates signs of complete failure, and nobody communicates clarification. It's Elvis, Dean articulates quietly. Elvis Presley orchestrates this activity. What rationale would Elvis Presley maintain for desiring your professional destruction? Dean explains concerning the funeral service, regarding the joke made. The legal representative fixates on him, completely stunned. You manufactured humor directed at his deceased mother. Dean, did you experience complete mental dysfunction? I was intoxicated. That fact presents no relevance. His mother experienced death. You cannot manufacture humor concerning someone's deceased mother. Dean comprehends his position within genuine difficulty, authentic, substantial difficulty. So he implements the single option accessible. He initiates an apologetic effort. December 1958. Dean materializes at Graceland without advance notice. The security gates are secured. He activates the intercom system. This is Dean Martin. I need to communicate with Elvis. The voice responding, belonging to a Memphis Mafia operative, communicates, Elvis declines your audience. Please, I need to communicate remorse. I created an error. I was intoxicated. I never genuinely meant my articulation. Elvis declines your apology. Communicate to him, I'll execute anything. Absolutely anything. An extended pause occurs. Subsequently, the voice returns. Elvis communicates the following. Nothing exists that you can execute. What you articulated remains unerased. What you express ridicule toward remains undefiled. What you're experiencing in financial loss represents your deserved consequence. The speaker system terminates. Dean waits at the Graceland gates for 20 minutes. Nobody comes. He initiates the journey back toward Las Vegas. He comprehends his professional existence has concluded. By 1959, Dean Martin performs in secondary-tier casino lounges for $5,000 per week, a 90% reduction from his previous peak compensation. His motion picture opportunities have completely evaporated. His recording sales have disintegrated as RCA distributes Elvis recordings continuously throughout the market, making competition impossible. Dean consumes significantly greater quantities of alcohol than previously. He experiences depression, desperation, and comprehensive emotional destruction. Throughout interviews, he attempts presenting the situation humorously. I'm accepting a temporary intermission, he communicates to journalists, dedicating time to family relationships. However, every individual throughout the professional entertainment industry comprehends a reality. Elvis Presley systematically obliterated Dean Martin's $20 million professional empire during a 6-month span. He accomplished this without communicating personally with Dean, without making any public pronouncements, without providing explanation. He simply initiated telephone contacts, manipulated professional relationships, leveraged his influence, and expunged Dean Martin from the entertainment industry's highest tier. However, one element persisted in haunting Dean perpetually throughout his remaining lifespan. In 1960, Frank Sinatra coordinated film production of Ocean's 11, featuring the Rat Pack Ensemble. Dean maintained assignment in the production. This represented his opportunity for professional reconstruction. However, 2 weeks prior to commencing filming, Frank initiates contact. Dean, I'm communicating unfavorable information. What currently? Elvis discovered your inclusion in the movie production. He contacted the film studio. He communicated that if you maintain assignment in Ocean's 11, he'll guarantee his supporters reject the film completely. And the studio completed the calculation. They're terminating your professional assignment. Dean experiences incredulity. Frank, you function as a movie's creator. You maintain authority to overturn this determination. Dean, I'm declining to initiate armed conflict with Elvis Presley concerning you. I regret this. However, I'm declining. That particular moment represented when Dean Martin comprehended the comprehensive scope of his situation. Not simply financial assets, not merely professional bookings, but dignity, professional standing, friendship, absolutely everything. He'd been permanently banished, and no trajectory existed for re-establishment.